Welcome back, guys. Once again, it is time for another round of F1 2019. We are headed to the Baku City Circuit in Azerbaijan for round 4 of this season. Currently sitting P7 in the Drivers' Championship, just ahead of one of the Red Bulls, but not quite best of the rest because we do have one of the Alphas, our old teammate Lucas, just ahead of us. So we are going to need to chase him down if we want to get to that best of the rest goal that we've set for ourselves this season. Development failed. Tire blankets did not come through, so we are going to be taking a little extra tire wear than we expected, thanks to that development failing. But luckily a dry weather race to deal with this weekend. You can see that failed development as we take a peek in at our R&D development tree here. So looks like Renault has just jumped us by a little bit in the development charts there. This is their last upgrade. So we are now the 5th best car on the grid. Engine wear components taking a bit of damage at this point. That engine number 1 is likely going to be basically just a practice engine at this point. Gearbox seems to be okay. We'll have to see after this race whether or not we're going to have to be taking a gearbox penalty when we head to Spain, because after that is Monaco, and we definitely don't want to be taking penalties at Monaco. But let's get through practice and head out to qualifying.
Welcome to qualifying in the Republic of Azerbaijan. The teams are making their last-minute adjustments before the lights go green, and the fight for pole position can get underway. I want to talk briefly about the strategy in these qualifying sessions. Anthony Davidson, how can a driver adjust their approach to gain those critical extra tenths of a second?
Well, qualifying isn't about adjusting your approach necessarily. It's more about trying to repeat a low fuel run that you've practiced prior to this session. You're looking for perfection on the lap, and that's hard to achieve if you're trying something new. There are some variables that can stand in your way, however. Track position or unexpected yellow flags, for example. Coupled with ever-changing track conditions, it's important to be out there at the right moment. But as a driver, you have to try and ignore these distractions and just keep your mind focused on that one perfect lap.
Alright, so we're jumping out towards just the tail end of Q1. You can see we're sitting pretty far down the grid. A couple mistakes in our banker lap has us sitting P18, and a couple mistakes early in the castle section also did not help us out. As you can see, that delta, we're just slightly red. So barring a miracle in like 7 cars crashing out, it looks like we might actually be getting eliminated here in Q1. So we'll see where we get. Yeah, we dropped to P20 as we cross the line. So we're already going to be starting from the back of the grid. So now is as good a time as any to take 60 positions worth of grid penalties and head to the back of the grid by grabbing a whole new set of engine components.
Keep a cool head and make up for it in the race.
Last season I didn't really follow the rule, and the game also doesn't enforce the rule, but kind of to prevent teams from taking a billion penalties every time they qualify poorly throughout the year. You are only allowed to have 3 active components in your pool, so basically slots number 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to be holding myself to that rule. So like for the IC, for example, I'm no longer going to allow myself to use number 1. It'll just be 2, 3, 4, so I'm only using 3 there. But we're going to go ahead and start from the back of the grid this race and see if we can work our way through it on race pace.
Good afternoon and welcome to Baku. This was the arena, if you think back to 2017, of one of the most eventful races of modern history, with controversy behind the safety car, last-second overtakes, and a historic podium for Williams and for Lance Stroll. So let's find out what lies in store for us this year. It's time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The Baku City Circuit measures roughly 6 kilometers and is made up of 20 corners and 2 DRS zones. The circuit winds around the narrow city, through the old town, and even brushes against the city's medieval walls. However, as beautiful as the setting is, this track is also a ferocious technical challenge, where the smallest of mistakes could lead to catastrophic consequences for all of our drivers. A warm welcome to Anthony Davidson, who's beside me in the commentary box today. Why don't we talk about Ferrari? We have a number of changes to the aerodynamic regulations this year, and the signs haven't looked good for them so far in terms of getting to grips with those changes.
There are a few downcast looks within the team this weekend. I think they've been hit fairly hard by the new regs. But this is only the first step down a long road of development, and even if they don't maximise their points today, there are plenty more up for grabs this season.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Weber, Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, and Raikkonen, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Verstappen, and Lance Stroll, Norris, Butler, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Russell, Albon, Grosjean, Carlos Sainz, and Charles Leclerc. They've taken a grid penalty, Gasly and Oldtimer. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
Now that we've got some points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
So one of the things I had trouble with this race, even in the practice sessions, I just really struggled with the overall one-lap pace. I went through a ton of different setups trying to get a real feel for the car, and the car just felt trash throughout this circuit. It was an understeery mess, no matter what setups I had on it, and I had to switch, between a lot of different low downforce, high downforce setups, just to try and get a feel for what was going to be the fastest. The higher downforce setups definitely helped out with that very understeery feeling, but I constantly, found myself nose on into the wall, clipping bits of front wing off in practice, regardless of how much downforce I was running. And I found that throughout the practice sessions, if I ran a low downforce setup, really leaned into the long straight, I would lose, 2 or 3 tenths in the corners over the course of the lap, but I was gaining a good 5-6 tenths on the straight compared to a high downforce setup where I would get those, 2-3 tenths back, but I was losing almost, 7 tenths on the straight. So I decided to go with a much lower downforce setup in this particular race, and obviously made some chassis adjustments to try and dial out some of the understeer. But as a result of that lower downforce, I am kind of trading it off with the increased tire wear. Obviously, less downforce, less overall grip, a little bit more tire slide, a little more tire heat, a little more tire degradation. So I thought about playing around going with a two-stop strategy in the strategy layouts, but I found every time I would set it up, it was showing to be a projected 7 to 12 seconds slower. So now I just kind of want to dial in and see what our strategy can be on the one stop. We're gonna go with the mediums onto the hards. About lap 12 of the 26, we're going to go ahead and pop into the pits. But here we are back in the grid with the 5 red lights up. Wait for those to drop, and we'll see if we can get away well. It's a very short run into T1 here, so we're going to try and make up some positions. A little dive, not too aggressive. We're going to try and slot in. Luckily, Grosjean left us just enough room for us to sneak by. We're going to move around the outside of our teammate George Russell, give him a little pinch on the inside, and he actually clips his back wheel on the barrier, and it kind of bumps him out. I thought we left him enough room for him to get through. Maybe not. I didn't make contact with him. He just kind of cut into the barrier there. But just like that, first 2 corners, we managed to get up 5 positions with a bit of an opportunistic dive. Giovinazzi in the Red Bull is sitting way down here in P13, which is kind of a surprise. But he also really, in that Red Bull seat, the best car on the development chart, has really not been turning in great performances. I mean, obviously, we're ahead of him in the championship standings, even though he's in the best car. Verstappen is pretty much up towards the top in the drivers' championship. So maybe Red Bull's made a bit of a mistake letting Danny Rick run back to Renault and not keeping him in that Red Bull seat and giving it to Giovinazzi. But we're into a phase where we're going to kind of settle in. The field is going to start to stretch out. We've got We've got that Red Bull splitting the two Toro Rossos, their sister team there. We've got Albon, and then in front of Giovinazzi, we've got Devin Butler there. So we'll see if we can stretch out and make some ground. And you'll see here our first time through the once we get through these flat out S's, once we hit the straights, you'll see the straight line speed advantage that we can really dial up in this car running the slow downforce setup. You can see even with the slipstream, no DRS, we're running 210 miles an hour, really closing up pretty well on Albon there. So see Butler and Norris a couple slots ahead, also battling side by side. That's going to allow us to close up to this group even more, which is good news for us overall. But it looks like finally, no, not quite. That Red Bull's got to get clear of Devin Butler to try and run off ahead. Otherwise, he's really hurting his chance for a good points finish. But it looks like he's finally made the move, stick around the outside there. Now he's going to try and run up and attack the McLaren of Lando Norris in front. Let's see, we've got, looks like we got a Haas and a Renault right behind us, as we are still kind of working our way through the midfield battle. You can see just how tight that castle section is, taking lots of curbs throughout there. It's a very dangerous section too. I mean, one teeny bit of understeer and the car is just nose on into a barrier into that castle section. So be very careful with a lot of the corners around Baku here. Wide entries but narrow exits, so it made the practice sessions with the understeer especially frustrating, because you'd feel like you could start to get on the throttle and then all of a sudden the front tires would just lose grip and you just go nose on into a wall. But here we go, another rundown. Still no DRS quite yet. One more lap to go before we're allowed to use that. But you can see there's a pretty big gap opening up between the Toro Rossos and Norris and Giovinazzi in front of us.
Within 1 second of the car ahead in the DRS zone.
Now Albon's going to try and have a look around Butler. We're have a little peek, not advisable to go 3 wide into that corner, and big moment of wheel spin. Just got a little too eager on the throttle with our first DRS zone coming up. I got a little too antsy, thought I might have had a chance to drop the DRS and get them into that short run in that zone, but all in all, the oversteer and loss of traction took that out of the opportunity. So we dropped the ERS systems down to low in this sector, charge the battery as much as we can so we can really deploy it out on the main straight. But it's just a matter of keeping our nose clean, keeping tight to these cars in front of us. Again, we're running a pretty low downforce setup. I think I ran a 5.4 wing set to try and get the nose in, but 1 click lower than default on the front, 2 clicks on the rear. To try and get a little bit more straight line speed. But here we go, getting close to that final straight where we'll have DRS in our first real overtaking opportunity. So yeah, we got Pierre Gasly as the Renault behind us. So we've got a couple slots to, it looks like, according to the mini-map, we've got Norris, Ricciardo, Magnussen, and Giovinazzi ahead. But here we go, we got a great run. We're going to get our first pass in before we even hit the DRS line. Open that wing up, get the second pass in, get through both of the Toro Rossos in one go. You see just how much straight line speed we can carry, basically revving out into the straight, end of the straight there. And you can see, one of the things you may notice as I come down that main straight, you'll see me do it a lot, is having it in that high deployment mode. But basically once I hit that top speed and start edging in towards the braking zone, dropping the ERS down to that low deployment, you'll actually notice even while flat out, the revs will start to drop as the electric part of the engine is not edging us along quite as hard, and we're actually start to lose speed while flat out because we're not deploying that hybrid energy. But it allows us to recover a little bit more energy as we get into the braking zone, not burn it, because obviously you don't want to spend that hybrid energy when you're at top speed, essentially. You're not going to get any more speed out of it. So use a little bit less to save it up for the next areas. But you can see we've kind of caught this train. Magnussen, Ricciardo. Lando Norris is kind of holding up Giovinazzi right now, and there's a pretty big gap to the top running cars, the Mercedes, the Alphas. The Alphas have been running great, and then the Racing Points, surprisingly. Obviously, you know, Sergio Perez started second on the grid. Lance Stroll, I believe, started 11th, but they have amazing pace so far around the track. And so we'll see if we can make another double move work here. We've got the next two cars pretty tight in front of us, and whoa, Magnussen almost had a big moment with the wall there. So we've opened the DRS, go 3 wide, and we are just going to cruise past that group. We're going to slot in just behind Lando Norris here, as Giovinazzi's made his way through, so he should be able to start to open up a bit of a gap to the McLaren in front, or I mean behind him. But that's going to be our next target, and should start to get us into the points-paying positions. After starting 20th, not a bad way to go. Yeah, P11 right now, so making a pass on Lando will get us into P10. We're going to take a couple lap jaunt ahead. We're to lap 8 now. Still P11. You can see we've settled in, gotten into the DRS range of Lando Norris. Giovinazzi's kind of run off, but we're going to go ahead and run right on by. Let's just drop that ERS down, start saving some energy into the first braking zone. Now we got to kind of defend, as Lando's going to have DRS down this next straight on us. He's running a higher downforce setup, so he's able to carry a little more speed through that corner, get a little better exit. But once we get up through the gears, we managed to carry our top speed, and our straight line abilities a little better, so we're able to hold him behind that time. A little bit of oversteer, just a teensy bit of wheel spin that we had to kind of correct coming through there, as we managed to survive our first attack, and Magnussen's actually made his way through Norris as well. So he's 1.4 seconds back. We've got 2.9 to try and catch Giovinazzi. So we're going to jump ahead once more. Lap 12, time to dive into the pits. You can see Sergio Perez out in front of us. He has already made one stop onto the mediums. He's got the fastest lap of the race right now. He actually passed his way straight through us pretty easy. So he's showing some tremendous pace this race. So I don't know what happened with the Racing Points this race, but something worked really well for them around this track, even though they're pretty far down the development chart. But that's our one pit stop complete. We're going to come out just ahead of Magnussen, just behind Ricciardo there. We're going to have a couple lap jump ahead as a couple more cars have pitted in. We're down P12 now. We've got another run on Norris, who appears to have undercut us a bit with his pit strategy, so we have to get back through him. But easy peasy with our better top end speed, and now we are chasing down Daniel Ricciardo for P10 at this point to get back into the points paying positions here. So Ricciardo jumped into the pits a couple laps ahead of us. He's got slightly older hard tires, but again, with that lower downforce setup, we are definitely putting more work and more hate into our tires. They're going to be pretty much screaming in pain by the end of this race on this hard compound. They're not going to be particularly happy. So we are definitely going to be in a position where if there's a car on fresher tires coming up behind us, we're going to have to defend that position. And with a long DRS straight to end the track, it's definitely a tough place to defend from. But I think our straight line speed, much like Ferrari this real life year, the straight line speed is going to save us in a particular situation like that. But we should be, as we come through the last real tight corners of the circuit, should be in DRS range of Danny Rick here, and should be able to catch that position up on him as we sweep through these flat out corners and tuck into the slipstream and get a good run up the back end. So DRS is open. We go sailing by pretty easily, slot back in front as we hit the braking zone, and get ourselves slowed down for T1 there. So let's see if we can make a gap out to Ricardo here. He is pretty tight on us. You can see Red Bull just ahead of us. I believe at this point it was Verstappen, since he, I believe, was on a 2-stop strategy. I want to say. I think he's on a 2. Maybe a 1. I know he started on the softs. Have to double check at the end of the race to see what his stop strategy was. But obviously Verstappen's gonna have much better pace in the Red Bull than us. So I don't expect that we'll be catching him, bar any mechanical issues that he may have. But here we are once again into the castle session. We've got a bit of a crew behind us. Haven't been able to quite space our way out to Ricardo. So our real hope at this point is if they start squabbling behind us, we have a good chance of opening up a gap. But we are got 10 laps to go in this race. We're lap 16 of 26, and sitting P10, so not a bad position. You can see where Verstappen 4.6 ahead of us at this point. A little bit more wheel spin and oversteer, kind of burning the tires a bit. You know, not something I necessarily wanted to do when tire management is going to be key towards the end of this race. But I did see that 4-second gap and kind of smelled a little blood in the water, so I wanted to try and run him down bit by bit over this last stint of the race. But you can see Ricardo with the DRS goes wheel to wheel, side by side with us through T1. He's swinging around the outside, just a little nudge on the side pods. He's going to try and hang it out around the outside of T2, but we managed to get fully ahead of him, kind of squeeze him out, and hold him off on the first big attack down that main straight. But you saw we had to turn everything way up in order to keep him behind us down that main straight, and even then he got a pretty good run into the braking zone. So we managed to open up a little bit of a gap to Ricardo there as we settled in, jumped ahead lap 23, only a couple laps left. You can see yellow flags ahead. A couple laps ago we got messages that both Verstappen and Raikkonen were having mechanical issues, and these mechanical issues for Raikkonen are going to end up being terminal, because that's him pulling off the side of the road there. That's a retirement and through that yellow flag zone. But you can see Ricardo has really, we opened up a bit of a gap to him, but then as our tires started to fall off, and apparently he's managed to manage his well, he started to close us in pretty rapidly. So you can see we're starting to get little glints of his arrows behind us. We'll see what he's at the next sector split, see what our gap to Verstappen is as well, with about 2.5 laps left in this race. 9.3 seconds to Verstappen, and Ricardo only now 1.2. So he is closing into that DRS range with a couple laps left, and he was basically picking up about 3 to 5 tenths a lap on us over the past like 4 or 5 laps. So he really reeled in the gap, and you can see just how much the nose does not want to turn in through that castle section, how much I'm having to lift and coast my way through those corners, so we don't just understeer off directly into the walls. Well, now we're getting to the section of track that is our best friend. 9.1 behind Verstappen, 0.89 with Ricardo behind. So unless we can get a good run out of these couple corners, Ricardo's going to potentially have a very good run and attack us into this next section. See, as we come down the straight, he's not far off, close to his slipstream range. I believe he had DRS open, so he was able to close up the gap a little bit here. But we managed to stay ahead once more into T1 and T2, but he's definitely shut that gap way down on us, and at this point it's going to be a battle for P9 and 10, I believe, is where we're at right now. You see that DRS open once again down that short chute. Not a great passing zone unless you have a really stellar exit off of that corner. You're really not gonna. The DRS is more to just keep you in touch, less than a attacking opportunity. But as we head through the slower, twistier section, you can see just how much more pace he's got on us in this section as he's closed right up onto our gearbox coming through this castle section. We got about 2 laps left to go here. Well, 1.5 now, really. Have to defend down that main straight 2 more times, potentially, in order to keep our position. If he gets by us this time, then we'll have to attack him, which might not be the worst thing in the world. If we're able to stay with him and inside DRS range, we could definitely get him back. But I'd rather, hold the position on him rather than try and have to gamble and fight back on him. I'm not going to be able to pull the Bahrain strategy where we lift into the DRS detection point and let somebody by so we can have DRS down the next big straight. But ripping down the main straight this time as we have a running full rich fuel mixtures, full hot lap ERS deployment. Literally every ounce of speed that the car can give us on its own is what we're using. And once again, Ricardo stays behind, but ever closer. He is closer and closer as this final lap has started. He's in DRS there. You see nose to tail essentially with us as we head through the tighter part of the city track. And only about 3 cars wide. A little bit of a lockup into that corner allows him to close right back up on us once again. We set ourselves up. Little run to get to the castle section for the last time around this track. And it is going to be an absolute drag race to the finish. He is very tight. We're going to have to see if we can move around a little bit on the straight, see if we can break the toe a little bit as we go a little wide. Luckily, the barriers are out there. Lewis Hamilton comes through for the win this time. Finally, looks to be breaking that Red Bull streak a little bit. But we are sitting P9, defending from falling back to P10. We weren't able to quite run down Verstappen. He's 7.9 ahead of us, but we managed to close a bit of that gap. But here we go, everything dialed up to the maximum. One more time through these sweepers. You can see just how close Ricardo is in those mirrors there. So we're going to work left side of the track. We're going to kind of move to the right and then back to the left. Try and keep him out of the slipstream as long as possible. But you can see that run he's getting on us. But we just managed to hit the line and hold off for P9.
Good finish. You stepped up and achieved what we asked. Good job.
That's it for another Grand Prix and a fantastic win for Mercedes. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes. Let's see how the driver standings have changed. This result narrows the gap between our championship leader and the rest of the standings. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
I have to give it to Old Timer. They fought so hard and had incredible pace at times, so I don't think anyone else did a better job today.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes moved to the top of the table. Meanwhile, good work from Racing Point this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
Yeah, a really stellar race for Racing Point. You know, a podium in Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll well in the points as well. And that is actually going to push us a little further down the drivers and constructors standings as now 6th in the championship. Got to make a couple more spots back in order to get to our best of the rest position.
You were cutting your way through the field during the race.
Yeah, it's super easy when the car handles well. I mean, a little understeery, but the car felt pretty good and was straight line speed.
Your team
was
must
great.
be ecstatic with how you're performing.
I mean, yeah, we should be doing a little better, but you can't get complacent. Got to keep doing what we're doing.
Do you think you were lucky not to end your race with that crash?
No comment. I'm not sure what crash you're talking about. Maybe the bump that we took at the very beginning of the race?
Great. Well, that's everything.
Alright, so we're back in the garage again. Picking up some of our points. We'll see what we've got left to spend. Unfortunately, obviously, we did not hit the podium, which we basically needed in order to hit our team goal for those 32 points in those 2 weeks. But that was a very, very stretched goal. I mean, it basically would have required a win and a second place, or second place and fastest laps both races in order to hit that. And we got a second place.
Great work. That's
But,
exactly the kind
not a
of result
win.
I'm looking for.
We have yet
Keep it up.
to get our maiden win, but now we're going to have our little contract negotiation. Now the car is expected to be much better, so we're going to have to make some tweaks. We're not going to be able to have the maximum contract perks that we have been afforded early on in the season. But we're going to see if we can't make it work by lower our race positions. I think I did this part wrong. I think what I should have done was raise the expectations. I think that decreased
They
the
aren't coming
contract
round to
value.
that proposal.
Still not
Let's
100%
try
certain
something else.
on exactly how it plays around. Mostly because I haven't experimented very well. I change multiple variables every time. So I'm not ever 100%
They
sure.
didn't
I
like
know
those
that
terms.
obviously
Let's try
higher
again.
contract perks means higher contract value. I'm still not 100% certain. I've never messed with the expected positions and team order and goals, whether having those harder increases or decreases the contract value.
I'm afraid negotiations have broken down, and there's nothing
So
more
we're
I
going to
can
have to
do.
go with the
Luckily,
pretty
we had
weak
the team's original offer to
one.
fall back on. So we've
Level
agreed
2
to
pit
those
stop
terms.
efficiency,
We'll have
level
another
1
chance to
upgrade
negotiate
speed,
down
and
the
only
road.
level 1 race bonus. So pit stops are not going to be those lovely 1.8s we've been getting every race so far, pretty much this season before. But, we only got to survive 4 races with it. We can have another go at renegotiating something a little better. But we are in R&D now, so you can see us having to repurchase that failed development. We're going to still have the worst chassis on the grid in spite of having a pretty good engine and aero development, so we're going to go ahead and keep pushing that section along development-wise. Really, really hope we don't have any aero reg changes, because that would be an absolute killer, because we've put so much work into the aero regs. So we should hopefully have a few developments arriving for Spain to help us get past Renault and close that gap back up to the top teams and have a better run. We'll see how our engine is looking after qualifying and where we qualify at, or not our engine, but our gearbox. And it's 61% after the 4 rate. It's getting into dangerous territory. And again, I don't want to have to take the penalty at Monaco. But we are headed off to Spain next. Thank you for joining me for this race, and come back for the next one, and we'll see if we can continue this rise towards the top. See you later, guys.